Some things are within our control, while others are not. Epictetus. Listen, warrior. Let me ask you something. Are you tired? Not the kind of tiredness that comes after a long day at work. I'm talking about a deeper kind of exhaustion. The kind that makes you wake up every morning, keep doing everything you have to do, and still smile when you need to, while deep inside, you just want a moment of silence where you don't have to think about anything anymore. Maybe you've become too accustomed to explaining yourself, why you chose this path, why you walked away, why you're no longer the person you used to be. You're afraid people will misunderstand you, afraid they'll be disappointed, afraid they'll think you're selfish. And so you keep talking a little more, explaining a little more, until you realize you're living your entire life just to make other people understand a life that was yours to begin with. Then you look at other people. Someone is more successful, someone is richer, someone seems happier. And even though your life isn't bad at all, you still feel like you're falling behind, like you're not good enough, like you haven't done enough. You try to control everything. You try to predict tomorrow. You try to prepare for things that may never happen. And when your mind becomes too exhausted, you reach for something that will make you feel better immediately. Your phone, a video, a conversation, a distraction. And so you carry yesterday into today, carry tomorrow into tonight, and then wonder why you no longer feel at peace. But perhaps the problem isn't that you aren't strong enough. Perhaps you're simply carrying too many things that no longer belong to you. And there are some things, warrior, that don't need to be fixed. They need to be put down. Today, we're going to look directly at 10 of those things. 1. Eliminate the need to explain yourself. There is a truth that we often realize only after many years. You are not tired because you have to make decisions. You are tired because you feel that you have to make other people understand those decisions. Think about a time when you chose a path that other people disagreed with. Maybe you left a job that everyone thought was too good to give up. Maybe you walked away from a relationship that others still thought you should try harder to save. Maybe you no longer wanted the social gatherings that once excited you because, deep down, you knew you wanted to spend your time on something else. You knew why you were doing it, but then a look appeared, a question, a silence, and immediately you started explaining. You told them why you made that decision. You talked about what had happened. You explained your intentions. You tried to choose words carefully enough so that the other person would not think badly of you, because deep down you were still hoping for one thing. If they understand, maybe they will accept it. But then they still did not understand, and you explained even more. This is when a simple decision begins to turn into an argument you never wanted to be part of. The more you talk, the more you feel that you have to prove yourself. The more you prove yourself, the more you give other people the power to judge your life. And perhaps the most painful part is not that they do not understand. It is that you begin to doubt yourself simply because they do not understand. The Stoics saw this trap a very long time ago. Epictetus begins the Enchiridion with a very clear distinction. There are things within our control, and there are things that are not. Among the things that are not within our control is reputation, how other people perceive us. That sounds simple, but try living by it. You can control your decision. You can control the reasons behind that decision. You can control how you treat other people, but you cannot control the story they will tell about you after you leave. You cannot control how they interpret your silence. You cannot control whether they think you are selfish, cold, mistaken, or changed. And the more you try to control these things, the more you put yourself into a battle you cannot win. Marcus Aurelius also reminded himself many times that other people's judgments are not what determine a person's worth. In Meditations, he even observed that people often place greater value on what others think of them than on their own judgment of themselves. Try looking back at your life. How many times have you said sorry when you had not actually done anything wrong? How many times have you explained a choice simply because you were afraid of disappointing someone? How many times have you changed the way you live just to avoid someone's criticism? And how many times have you known exactly what you needed to do, yet still stood still because you were afraid of what other people would think? That is not maturity. Maturity does not mean becoming indifferent to other people. It means learning to distinguish between your responsibility and their judgment. You are responsible for your character. You are responsible for the choices you make. You are responsible for how you treat other people. But you are not responsible for making everyone understand you. And this is where silence becomes a form of strength. Not the silence of someone who is angry, not silence used as punishment, but the silence of someone who has said enough, thought enough, and no longer needs to turn their life into a defense. You can say, "I have made my decision," and then stop. No need for another speech. No need for an argument. No need to prove that you are a good person, because if someone has already decided to misunderstand you, another 1,000 explanations cannot force them to see you through your own eyes. Let them think. Let them misunderstand. Let them talk. And you, return to the only thing that truly belongs to you, the way you live. Tonight, try to remember something you have explained too much. A decision, a departure, a change. And ask yourself, if I know that I acted in accordance with my conscience and my values, do I still need anyone else to agree? If the answer is no, let it be. Not every misunderstanding needs to be corrected. Not every judgment requires a response. And not everyone needs permission to step inside the most important decisions of your life. Because sometimes, peace begins the moment you stop trying to explain yourself to the world and start living firmly enough that you no longer need the world to confirm who you are. 2. Eliminate comparison. Right now, there may be someone sitting in front of this screen wondering why their life still doesn't look like someone else's. Maybe you just saw someone buy a new house. Someone just started a company. Someone just got married. Someone is traveling through Europe. Someone your age just became a millionaire. And then you look back at yourself, your job, your bank account, your home, what you've accomplished, what you still don't have, and an uncomfortable feeling begins to appear. Am I falling behind them? Maybe just a few minutes ago, you thought your life was perfectly fine. But after looking at someone else's life a few times, the things you once appreciated suddenly seem small. That's what comparison does to your mind. It doesn't necessarily take anything away from your life. It simply makes you stop seeing the value in what you already have. Today, this has become easier than ever. You can wake up before you've even gotten out of bed and immediately see hundreds of other lives. But think about this carefully. Are you seeing their life? Or only what they have chosen to show you? You see a vacation, a house, a wedding, a successful business, a healthy body, a happy moment, but you don't see the entire life behind those moments. And then you take the highlights of someone else's life and compare them with the parts of your own life where you feel you're falling short. How could you not feel inferior? But this is where the real trap begins. You start measuring your progress not by the person you used to be, but by where you stand compared to everyone else. You accomplish something, you feel happy, until you see someone who has accomplished more. You move one step forward, but then you discover someone else is already further ahead. And so you run again. The Stoics looked at life differently. They didn't ask, "Am I ahead of other people?" They asked a much simpler question, "Am I becoming better than I was?" That's a completely different game, because if your definition of success depends on surpassing other people, you will never truly arrive. There will always be someone richer, someone healthier, someone more successful, someone who has more than you. And if you use them as the measure of your life, you will always feel like something is missing, even when you already have so much. So stop. Not every race is your race. You don't need to prove that you're living better than someone else. You don't need to be the richest person in the room. You don't need to have more than the person beside you. You don't need to move faster than everyone else just to feel like you're moving forward. Come back to your own path. Look at your health. Look at your mind. Look at the skills you're building. Look at the person you're becoming and ask yourself, am I better today than I was yesterday? If the answer is yes, even just a little, then you are still moving forward. You don't need to know how fast everyone else is running. You only need to know whether you're moving in the right direction. And if today you still haven't achieved what someone else has, that's okay. Your life does not become worthless simply because someone else is ahead of you. Your progress is still progress. Your path is still your path. So, eliminate comparison. Not loudly, not dramatically. You don't need to announce to anyone that you've stopped caring. Just stop participating in a competition you never needed to enter. Build your life. Improve your health. Strengthen your mind. Develop your skills. And become someone you can be proud of. Let everyone else run their own race. And you, run yours. Because in the end, the most important question isn't, am I ahead of them or behind them? It's, am I becoming better than the person I used to be? If you choose to stop looking at other people's lives and start focusing on your own path, leave this affirmation in the comments. I run my own race. Three, eliminate the habit of overthinking. There is something you need to understand. Not every problem needs to be solved inside your mind right now. There are things that have never happened in reality, yet they have already happened hundreds of times inside your head. Think about a very ordinary night. Maybe it is 2:17 in the morning. The room is silent. Your phone is down. Everyone is asleep, but your mind is still awake. You remember something someone said to you 6 months ago. You wonder whether you should have said something differently. You imagine a conversation that has never happened. You think about a problem that might appear tomorrow. Then a question appears. What if I fail? What if they leave? What if I make the wrong choice? And just like that, 1 hour passes, then 2, then 3. And the frightening part is that you think you're thinking in order to find an answer. But sometimes, you are not solving a problem. You are simply rehearsing your anxiety about a possibility that has never happened. That is the trap of overthinking. The mind makes you believe that if you think just a little more, you will be able to control the future. But the more you think, the more possibilities you create. The more possibilities you create, the more things you have to fear. And eventually, you become exhausted from a battle that never even began. The Stoics understood that the strength of the mind does not lie in thinking about everything. It lies in the ability to distinguish what truly belongs to you. There is a simple question that can interrupt the cycle. Is this within my control? If it is, do something. If you can change it, change it. If you can fix it, fix it. If you can prepare for it, prepare for it. But if the answer is no, let it go. It is not easy, but it is simple. You do not need to solve tomorrow tonight. You do not need to rewrite yesterday. You only need to deal with what is actually in front of you. Because the mind becomes exhausted when it constantly lives in places your body cannot reach. You are lying in bed, but your mind is already inside a conversation that will happen tomorrow. You are sitting in a room, but your mind is trapped inside a mistake from 6 months ago, and you call that thinking. But sometimes, it is simply anxiety wearing the appearance of reason. So when you realize that you are overthinking, do not try to fight every thought. Stop, breathe, and ask, is this within my control? If it is, return to action. If it is not, return to acceptance. That is where you take your power back. Not tomorrow, not yesterday, but today. Today is the only place where you can act. Today is the only place where you can choose. Today is the only place where you can live. So tonight, if your mind starts running too far again, do not follow it. Do not try to solve every possibility. Do not try to control a future that does not yet exist. Bring yourself back to this moment, this room, this breath, the thing that is directly in front of you. And if something truly lies beyond your control, leave it outside. Because you cannot stop every storm from appearing, but you can stop standing in the middle of your room, imagining that you are already inside every storm that has never arrived. And this is what matters. You can eliminate the people who drain your energy. You can stop comparing yourself to others. You can learn to quiet your mind and still feel stuck. Why? Because some things do not exist outside of you. There are things you have carried for years. Old stories, old habits, old ways of seeing yourself. And those are the things that are hardest to let go of, because you cannot simply walk away from them. You have to confront them. Four, eliminate the addiction to instant gratification. Is greater than. Nothing great is created suddenly, for not even the grape or the fig can be. If you tell me that you want a fig right now, I will answer that it takes time. First let it flower, then bear fruit, and then ripen. Is greater than. Epictetus. There is something modern life is quietly taking away from you. Not money, not time, but your ability to wait. You may not even realize it, because everything around you is designed to give you what you want immediately. One click, one swipe, one notification, one video, one purchase, one distraction. You feel sad, and your phone is suddenly in your hand. You feel bored, and you look for something to watch. You sit down to work, but only a few minutes later, your mind starts searching for something more pleasurable. And the problem is not that these things exist. The problem begins when your mind becomes unable to tolerate waiting. You want the result before the process is finished. You want the motivation before you begin. You want the reward before you have truly earned it. And if you don't get it quickly enough, you quit. Think about someone who decides to change their life. On the first day, they are full of enthusiasm. On the second day, they are still trying. But then a few days pass. The work becomes boring. The results haven't appeared. Nobody praises them. Nobody sees them. And the mind begins to whisper, "Is this worth it? Why should I keep going? I can do this tomorrow." And so you return to whatever gives you pleasure immediately. That is how a habit is formed. Not in one great moment, but through hundreds of times when you choose comfort over something difficult. The Stoics understood something very different. They knew that the things most valuable in life rarely come immediately. Strength takes time, wisdom takes time, financial stability takes time, deep relationships take time, mastery takes time, and character takes time. None of these things are built overnight. Epictetus used the image of a fig to remind us of this. You cannot demand that a fig appear the moment you want it. It has to go through its process. Flower, bear fruit, then ripen. Human beings are the same. You cannot expect to become disciplined without going through days when you don't feel like doing anything. You cannot expect to become strong while constantly running toward comfort. You cannot expect to build a life you are proud of while demanding that every result appear quickly. So, practice waiting. When the work is difficult, finish it. When you don't feel like walking, step outside anyway. When nobody is applauding, keep working. When the results haven't appeared, don't immediately conclude that your effort is worthless. Stay with the process, because at that moment, you are not only building a result, you are building something even more important: the ability to delay comfort. Every time you choose to finish your work instead of checking your phone, you are training your mind. Every time you continue, even without an immediate reward, you are training your mind. Every time you tolerate boredom without running towards something to stimulate you, you are training your mind. And over time, that changes the way you live. You no longer need to feel like doing something before you begin. You no longer need someone to applaud before you continue. You no longer need immediate results to know that you are moving in the right direction. You learn to do what is right even when the reward is still far away. That is a form of freedom very few people possess. Because a person who cannot tolerate waiting will always be pulled toward whatever provides pleasure the fastest. But a person who can wait, who can work in silence, who can tolerate boredom, who can continue when there are no results yet, becomes much harder to control. So today, try something simple. Don't look for an immediate reward. Finish the task you've been putting off. Put your phone down. Walk a little farther. Finish the work even if nobody knows. And when your mind asks, "When will I finally get the result?" remember, a fig cannot ripen faster simply because you are impatient. Neither can you. You are in the process of becoming a stronger person, and that process takes time. Don't give up simply because you cannot see the fruit yet, because there are things being built inside you that cannot be seen today. Discipline, patience, endurance, self-control, and character. Those things do not appear overnight. They are created through hundreds of small choices, especially the choices nobody sees. And perhaps that is the most important part. You are not simply learning how to delay a reward. You are learning how not to become a slave to comfort. If you are ready to train your ability to wait instead of chasing every form of instant gratification, leave this affirmation in the comments. I do not need an immediate reward. I choose to build something of lasting value. 5. Eliminate the people who constantly drain your energy. Seneca once wrote about choosing the people we allow into our lives is greater than. Associate with those who can make you better, and welcome those whom you yourself can improve is greater than. Seneca. This is not merely advice about friendship. It is a principle about how you protect your life. Because there is a truth we often find difficult to admit. Not everyone who exhausts you is a bad person. Sometimes they were once very important to you. Sometimes the two of you have been through many years together. You laughed together. You cried together. You survived periods of life that you once thought you would never forget. And because of that history, you feel as though you have no right to walk away. You already know that conversation will leave you exhausted. You know the pattern, the endless complaints, the negativity, the unnecessary drama, the repeated criticism. You enter the conversation with an ordinary mind and walk away feeling as though you have lost a piece of your energy. But then, a few days later, you return again. Why? Because history makes us confuse affection with obligation. You think, we've known each other for too long. They were there for me once. I can't treat them that way. But stop for a moment. Someone who once mattered to you does not necessarily have to have unlimited access to your future. History is not the same thing as obligation. You can be grateful to someone for what they once brought into your life. You can appreciate the years you shared. You can remember them with kindness and still choose to walk away. That is not betrayal, it is maturity, because sometimes the problem is not that someone has become a terrible person. It is simply that the two of you are no longer compatible in the way you once were. People change, values change, priorities change, and each person's path in life changes too. Maybe once you found connection in parties, complaints, and conversations that lasted until late at night. But then one day, you began wanting a different life. You want to become calmer, more disciplined. You want to build your future. You want to protect your time and your focus. And suddenly, the things that once felt completely normal begin to exhaust you. Don't rush to hate that. Look at it clearly. A Stoic does not need to turn every separation into a battle. You don't need to announce, "I don't want to see you anymore." You don't need a speech. You don't need a confrontation. You don't need to prove who is right and who is wrong. Sometimes, the strongest boundary is almost completely silent. You respond less. You participate less. You explain less. You react less. You stop showing up for every conversation. You stop allowing every problem in someone else's life to become your problem. And gradually, distance appears. Not because you hate them, but because you have begun to respect your own peace. Ask yourself, after being around this person, do I become a better person or more exhausted? Is this conversation helping me grow or pulling me back toward things I've been trying to overcome? Am I staying because of genuine affection or simply because I feel guilty about walking away? These questions are not meant to turn you into a cold person. They help you become clear-minded. Because kindness does not mean allowing anyone to disturb your peace. And loyalty does not mean sacrificing your future to preserve a relationship that is no longer right for you. You can be kind and still keep your distance. You can forgive without returning. You can care about someone without giving them access to every part of your life. That is maturity. A warrior does not fight everyone. He knows which battles are worth entering, and he also knows when to simply lay down his sword and walk away. So, if there is someone who constantly drains you, don't rush to create a dramatic ending. Start with something simple. Create distance. Speak less. Participate less. React less. Protect your time. Protect your focus. Protect your peace. Because you don't have to hate someone to walk away from their life. Sometimes, you simply need to understand that the paths of two people no longer lead in the same direction. And when you become mature enough to accept that, you no longer need to turn separation into a battle. You simply walk away, without anger, without revenge, without explanation, just calmly, because in the end, your peace is also your responsibility. And if you are ready to stop holding on to relationships that quietly take away your peace, leave this affirmation in the comments. I protect my peace without needing to hate anyone. 6. Eliminate negative self-talk. There is a conversation that happens every single day of your life. No one else hears it. No one knows what you say, but it can determine how you see yourself, how you face failure, and even how you step into tomorrow. It is the conversation between you and yourself. And sometimes, the person who says the cruelest things to you is you. You make a mistake. I'm useless. You fail at something. I'll never succeed. Someone rejects you. No one will ever truly want me. At first glance, these are just words inside your head. But look closer. You have just turned an event into an identity, turned a failure into a prediction, turned one bad day into a story about your entire future. Epictetus once wrote, "Is greater than. People are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of things." Is greater than Epictetus. Think about that. A failure is simply an event, but your mind can turn it into, "I'm a failure." A rejection is simply a moment, but your mind can turn it into, "No one will ever love me." A mistake is simply something that happened, but your mind can turn it into, "I always ruin everything." The problem is no longer the event. The problem is the story you are telling yourself about the event. The Stoics understood that a trained mind is not a mind that never experiences failure. It is a mind that knows how to see failure for exactly what it is, without exaggerating it, without distorting it, without turning it into a sentence against yourself. That is why you need to learn how to change the way you speak to yourself, not with empty praise, not by standing in front of a mirror and convincing yourself that everything is perfect, but with truth. Instead of, "I am a failure," say, "I failed at this." Look at the difference. The first attacks who you are. The second simply describes what happened. One closes the door, the other leaves the door open. Because if you say, "I am an undisciplined person," you will begin acting like an undisciplined person. But if you say, "I lacked discipline in this situation," you still have the ability to change. You are not denying the truth. You are simply refusing to turn the truth of one moment into a sentence for your entire life. Start observing yourself. Every time you make a mistake, what do you say? Every time someone rejects you, what do you say? Every time a plan fails, what do you immediately conclude about yourself? And more importantly, is what you are saying actually true? Or is it simply your emotion speaking for you? A Stoic does not need to say, "Everything is wonderful." When everything is not wonderful, they do not need to deny the pain. They do not need to pretend that failure does not hurt. They simply need to see things as they are. I failed, but I am not a failure. I made a mistake, but I am not that mistake. I was rejected, but that rejection does not determine my worth. I had a terrible day, but one terrible day does not determine my life. That is the discipline of the mind. You do not need to become someone who always loves themselves. You need to become someone who does not sabotage themselves. Because if life hits you once, and then you hit yourself 10 more times with the words inside your own head, you are making the wound deeper yourself. So the next time you make a mistake, stop. Do not immediately say, "I'm useless." Say, "I did not handle this well. What can I learn from it?" When you fail, do not say, "I'll never succeed." Say, "This approach did not work. What do I need to do differently?" When you are rejected, do not turn it into a story about your worth. See it as an event. One person said no, that's all. You do not need to turn one no into a prophecy about your entire future. Remember, an event is not your identity. A failure is not your future. A bad day is not your life. And one mistake has no right to decide who you will become. You can be honest with yourself without being cruel to yourself. You can look directly at your weaknesses without turning them into reasons to hate yourself. You can admit, "I need to become better," without having to say, "I am not good enough." It is a small difference in language, but sometimes it creates a very big difference in the way a person lives. So from today onward, start listening to the conversation no one else can hear. Pay attention to what you say to yourself when you fail. Correct the words that turn an event into an identity. No flattery, no self-pity, no denial of the truth, only honesty and discipline. Because you will have to live with yourself longer than anyone else. And the voice you hear every day inside your mind should be someone strong enough to help you grow, but also wise enough not to turn every mistake you make into a sentence. If you are ready to stop sabotaging yourself with the words inside your own mind, remember this commitment. I will acknowledge my mistakes without turning them into my identity. 7. Eliminate the old identity. Is greater than. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Is greater than Marcus Aurelius. There is a quiet trap that many people never recognize. Sometimes, the greatest obstacle standing between you and the life you want is not your circumstances. It is the story you have accepted about yourself. You tell yourself, "I'm simply not disciplined. I'm not good with money. I'm always unlucky. I've never been a confident person." And eventually, you say the most dangerous sentence of all, "That's just who I am." Be careful with those words, because when you repeat an identity long enough, you stop merely describing yourself. You begin to defend it. You start looking for evidence that proves you are right. You fail to maintain a habit and tell yourself, "See, I'm just not disciplined." You miss an opportunity and think, "I'm always unlucky." You enter a new situation and tell yourself, "I've never been a confident person." And then something happens. What was once only the way you viewed yourself begins to become the way you live. The Stoics understood that human beings are not condemned to live forever under the shadow of an old version of themselves. Maybe 5 years ago, you were insecure. Maybe you made terrible decisions. Maybe you wasted valuable opportunities. Maybe you allowed people to treat you in ways you never deserved. Fine, it happened. But it does not have to become your permanent identity. Your past can explain why you became the person you are today. But it does not have to determine who you will become. That is the difference between learning from the past and living under the authority of the past. A Stoic does not deny the person they once were. They simply refuse to let that person keep driving. So instead of saying, "I have no discipline," look directly at the truth. "I have lacked discipline," instead of, "I'm not confident." Ask, "What can I practice to become more confident?" instead of, "I'm always unlucky." Look at what actually happened. Because one event in your past has no right to become a prophecy for your entire future. You are allowed to change. You are allowed to become quieter, stronger, more disciplined, more patient, more selective, and more mature. But to do that, You have to stop using your old identity to justify your present choices. Don't ask, "What kind of person have I always been?" Ask, "What kind of person am I choosing to become?" That is a completely different question, because the person you were was shaped by the choices of yesterday, but the person you will become is being shaped by the choices you make today. You do not need to destroy your old self. You do not need to hate the mistakes you once made. You simply need to stop letting them drive your life. Leave the past behind. Learn from it, but do not give it the authority to decide your future. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you are changing the story of who you are. Every time you do the difficult thing instead of the easy thing, you are building a new identity. Every time you rise after failure, you are proving that you are no longer the person you were yesterday. So tonight, ask yourself, am I continuing to live according to the person I used to be, or am I becoming the person I want to be? Don't rush to answer. Just be honest with yourself. Because sometimes, the thing you need to eliminate is not a circumstance, not a person, not a habit, but the old story you have been telling yourself for far too long. You are not trapped in your past. You simply need to stop letting the past drive. And if you are ready to step beyond the identity that no longer serves you, remember this commitment. My past explains me, but it does not define me. 8. Eliminate chasing people who don't choose you. Is greater than. Some things are within our power, while others are not. Is greater than Epictetus. There is a kind of exhaustion you may have experienced many times. It is the feeling of having to keep trying just to keep someone in your life. Maybe it is a friend who has become increasingly distant, a family member who no longer wants to listen to you, a brother or sister who no longer wants the same closeness you once shared. Maybe it is a parent whose approval you have spent years trying to earn, or someone you once deeply valued, but who no longer chooses to give you their time, their attention, or their presence. And the most painful part is, you keep trying. You call first. You send the messages. You try to explain yourself. You try to do more. You ask yourself what you did wrong. You think that if you were more patient, better, kinder, perhaps everything would return to the way it was. Pause. But stop for a moment. Are you actually building a relationship? Or are you trying to convince someone to choose you? Because those are two completely different things. A relationship requires the participation of both sides. You can open the door, but you cannot make someone walk through it. You can reach out your hand, but you cannot make them take it. You can offer sincerity, but you cannot force them to return that sincerity. This is where Stoic philosophy becomes powerful. Epictetus reminds us that some things are within our control and some things are not. Pause. You cannot control what other people think about you. You cannot control whether they want to be close to you. You cannot control whether they understand you. You cannot control whether a friend still wants to be your friend, whether a family member still wants to talk to you, or whether someone who was once deeply important to you still wants you in their life. But you can control one thing: how you respond to their choice. So, if someone repeatedly creates distance, pay attention to that information. Don't turn rejection into a mission. Don't spend months or years trying to prove that you deserve to be heard, respected, or loved. Don't keep chasing someone simply because you're afraid of losing the history you once shared. Because history is not the same thing as obligation. You can be grateful for what someone once brought into your life without giving them unlimited access to your future. Size. And this doesn't mean you have to hate them. There doesn't need to be a confrontation. There doesn't need to be a declaration. You don't need to prove that you don't need them. Sometimes, you simply need to step back, speak less, reach out less, explain less, expect less, and stop trying to carry alone something that both sides are no longer building together. That is not coldness. That is maturity. Because a Stoic understands, you can control how you treat other people, but you cannot control how they choose to treat you. And sometimes, the strongest response to distance is not to chase. It is to Accept. Accept that some people will enter your life and then leave. Some relationships will change. Some people who were once close will become people you only remember. And that does not necessarily mean you failed. Some people will no longer choose you. Let them have the right to choose their own life. And you, too, must keep the right to choose your own. Because you do not need to chase anyone to prove that you have value. Those who choose to stay, appreciate them. Those who choose to leave, let them go. 9. Eliminate the fear of being alone. Is greater than. The greatest thing in the world is to know how to belong to oneself. Is greater than Michel de Montaigne. There is something many people fail to realize. Sometimes, what you call loneliness is simply a season of life forcing you to stay with yourself. We are afraid of evenings when there is no one to call, afraid when our phones no longer light up constantly, afraid when our circle becomes smaller, and then we think, something must be wrong with me. But that is not always true. There is a difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness says, there is no one here for me. Solitude says, finally, I have space to listen to myself. Pause. Some of the most important seasons of your life will be quiet ones. Your phone rings less. Your friends show up less. Your weekends become emptier. Don't be so quick to assume that you are being left behind. Maybe life is simply giving you space to think, rebuild, and understand yourself. Because if you cannot stand being alone, you may begin accepting people who are not right for you simply because they are there. You stay in a friendship that drains you. You cling to a relationship that no longer fits. You accept things you know you don't deserve, simply because you are afraid of the emptiness that will remain when they are gone. Sighs. A Stoic learns to do the opposite. They learn to be alone without feeling abandoned, to sit in silence without needing to escape, to learn to enjoy their own presence. Because when you can be alone without needing constant stimulation, you stop accepting just anyone simply to avoid feeling empty. You become much harder to manipulate, and that is freedom. So, if life is entering a quieter season, don't be so quick to run from it. Maybe you are not being left behind. Maybe you are being given the opportunity to find yourself again. 10. Eliminate the need to control what you cannot control. Is greater than. There are things under our control, and there are things not under our control. Is greater than Epictetus. There is a lesson beneath everything we have just discussed. You cannot control everything. You never could. You cannot control what other people think of you. You cannot control whether someone stays or leaves. You cannot change the past. You cannot decide how the economy will perform. You cannot guarantee that every plan will unfold exactly as you want it to. And the harder you try to control these things, the more energy you give them. You worry about an outcome that has not happened yet. You try to guess what other people are thinking. You try to fix what already belongs to the past. You want life to unfold according to your exact plan. Pause. But try to stop and ask yourself, what is actually within my control? Your response, your discipline, your choices, your attitude, your effort, and your character. That is where your strength truly exists. Imagine that you are standing on a beach in the middle of a storm. You cannot command the ocean to be still. You cannot tell the wind to blow in the direction you want. You cannot stop the clouds from gathering, but you can decide whether you will panic or stand firm. That is the spirit of Stoicism, not becoming emotionless, not pretending that life does not hurt, but understanding clearly where your power truly lies. And when you stop wasting your energy fighting against reality, you have more energy to change what actually belongs to you. You cannot control the storm, but you can control how you walk through it. You cannot control where life takes you, but you can decide what kind of person you will become along the way. And sometimes, peace does not come from life finally listening to you. It comes from the moment you stop demanding that life listen to you.